Right, good evening, everybody. Apologies for the slight delay. My internet is effectively third world and non existent. So I will just let a few people trickle in um, here. So tonight I'm going to be talking about, as the title suggests, um, it's mainly around the Epstein files, but also how I have noticed effectively similar reaction, similar levels of justification and cope around the political partisanship around it, and also, there's the wider thing of, why is it elites tend to cover up? Why is it particularly prevalent? Like, why it's important that this cover up, like the Grooming Gang stuff, doesn't seem to work, and why this, particularly for America, going forward, it's it breaks down a lot of myths and well, I guess you could say myths and uh, that has built up over time. So let me just share it now again. Uh, as I said, my internet is rough, um, and uh, and everything, but I will endeavour to complete this without um, you know, pauses or breaks from you know, shit internet. So let's get started here. Um, a lot of so this week, um, it has been revealed by the Trump administration in the American government that there is no file on Epstein. All the supposed, information that Bondi woman had, and Laura Loomer, and all these figures around the MAGA movement that have been beating this drum haven't. Uh, it has been revealed apparently that these documents don't exist, and that you should stop focus. The words from Trump, you're basically a loser if you focus on this. You need to move on. And the reaction from the MAGA base is basically just open revolt against him. Um, and Caravigio, y- you're right. This is an important question. Um, and just to give a bit of background, Jeffrey Epstein was had some sort of relationship, whether it be sexual or platonic or what have you. There was some relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell, and now Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, who was a Czechoslovakian Jew, backer of the Labour Party in this country, and also the owner of the Mirror. Um, I can't remember if he also owned the Sun at some point or another paper, but he was known for being in the Mirror group, and just all out leftist, and also was affiliated with Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service slash hit squad on the weekends. um, the Israeli goon squad, if you will. And it's been suggested that that connection can also be applied to Jeffrey Epstein. There have been people like on Judge Knapp and his former CIA buddies that have drawn those connotations. Tucker, whose parents, his father, was in the CIA, have also drawn that, and it would explain why Jeffrey Epstein managed to go from a school teacher to an overnight success when it comes to investment banking, what have you. Um, and garner this sort of wealth and influence, which is mysterious in on itself. Looking at it, there doesn't seem to be a clear path through. Of course, you had the famous island of his private island in the Caribbean. I believe it's in the Bahamas, um, which has been sort of referred to as like Nonce. I'll call it Nonce Island for all sake and purposes. You know, where you had the funny shaped temple like complex and everything, and that there are flight logs to this island that they're were probably wealthy and influential and political figures from around the world have gone there on those flight logs. Um, Monarchs and princes and stuff. So this site has was raided by the FBI and a couple years ago now, and so things were seized and everything. There's been lots of rumors there. One thing we know is that, which has been you know put on record in affidavits and stuff, that there was um, from mainland America children, I think as young as 12, to be confirmed, 12 or 13, were trafficked um, from you know sometimes out through Miami and Florida to these islands, or this island, this private island of Jeffrey Epstein. And Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in it, other people were involved with it. And the way that they were able to do this was basically pretend it was like a fashion shoot. From my understanding, again, from like court and affidavits and witness testimony, that this was like they were going to go on a fashion shoot. And there was also one case where one of the girls was in like whatever the terminology is for foster care, you know, so no parents, it was in the foster care setting. um, and that they would be sort of handpicked. They'd go to the island, and then presumably this is where the abuse would happen. In this, people who took part in this, and this is where this is where we go into sort of the speculation part. It sort of everyone sort of jumps to the idea that powerful and influential people would engage in abuse with these trafficked children, um, and uh, Jeffrey Epstein used, either filmed, secretly recorded somehow, or even garnered, say, DNA or something, anything to implicate these, that would show that there's uh, well, these influential politicians and figures in society had sex with minors. That this would then make them easier to blackmail and have influence under that. And there's also been the new developed theory, and that's probably what I'm more aligned to, is that he was a asset to, and this is where I've heard on multiple CIA people on podcasts and what have you. He was either you know working for the CIA, MI6, though personally I don't see that connection, or Mossad. Now, the head of Mossad, or former head of Mossad, came out recently in an interview, and I think it was on Fox, and said categorically, um, he was not an asset. He wasn't an asset, and there's no relationship with that. Well, first of all, they're never going to admit that in the first place. But also, secondly, um, this is the organization that planted those pager bombs, have incredible history of infiltration, assassinations, and basically doing anything to get their results. So um, the implication, if it was true, is that basically it was a Mossad op that trafficked girls out of America and to Pedophile Island, and also around other sites in America as well, which would be you know, uh, I mean, Israel's reputation in the West itself has drastically declined over the last 3 years. If that was to, a story was ever to come out, I w- it would only be a few fanatical, um, you know, evangelicals, and then maybe, you know, um, the dual nationals that would still be sort of supporting them. And this is the problem that the American regime's got, is that there is this building up resentment. Um, Someone like Nick Fuentes has suggested that the way that they contain that is they use the likes of Tucker Carlson and Daryl Cooper and people like that to um, contain that, giving it a bit of oxygen, but containing it into basically, well, um, we should, containing it more to Netanyahu than anything else. And I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But one thing that has struck me in all of this is the reaction from people like Charlie Kirk, people like Mark Levin, and all these MAGA people, these big defender of Trump, who have had to engage in some incredible levels of mental gymnastics to argue this case. And I mean, yes, these people are partisan; they're partisan for Trump. But what's happened is that they've effectively um, turned on their own in doing so, and also making themselves look like a complete, um, mess. One thing that Charlie Kirk does, and I do not like this, I find it outdated, I find it low hanging, and I find it, I mean, just quite frankly, I just find it on the scale maybe a bit cruel as well, where he would, and I don't know how old he is. I think he's in his maybe 30s. I think in his 30s, but he'll go to universities or college campuses or whatever you want to call it around the United States, and he will sit there and engage with debates with basically dumb teenagers whose lobe haven't fully formed yet, whose brains haven't fully formed yet, um, and a couple other people like to do that as well. It's kind of like beating a midget, you know. It's like kind of like having a wrestling match with a midget or something. Well, of course you're gonna win. Of course you're gonna dominate. It's not equal. It's not like a fair fight in that regard. And whenever he has come up against people who um, are his equals, I guess, say in age and wisdom or whatever, I've never really seen him do, perform well at all. I mean, I don't when he had his the recent Cambridge back and throw. I don't think he actually sort of. I mean, yeah, the sort of lefty side were a bit weak and tepid, but his debate tactics is just like mic drop gotchas, and that works if you're charismatic and you have very fast reflexes. But he confuses talking fast with charisma, and it's just annoying. And Ben Shapiro does it as well. He just talks super fast, and but he doesn't do it for the whole charisma. It's sort of like implies high, you know, high IQ, high verbal IQ, high verbal bullshittery more like. But there you go. And so all these people have engaged in gymnastics where either they get on board and deny it. On Charlie Kirk's case, he doesn't quite deny it, but he says that we didn't understand Trump, or Trump didn't understand what he was saying, or so. I don't know. That bit was lost on me, to be honest. But you can check that out if you wanted to find that. I think the clip's been doing the round. Um, and also that yeah, we just need to move on, guys. This Focus on this. Trump's gone to a Coca-Cola factory. Just focus on this. Epstein, who's Epstein? Well, that's like a couple of years ago. Who cares? Who cares? And that has angered the MAGA base. Um, Alex Jones has been in revolt, big defender. Even Steve Turley. Now, Dr. Steve Turley, I've been following him for years, at least 2017, 2018, when he first started, when he was quite a relatively small channel. And his whole thing, like probably today, I don't know, but his whole thing was promoting populism, national conservatism in the United States and Europe, covering all these topics. And even him, who has been, I mean, he's total through and through red Republican, leads red, white, and blue, um, partisan, MAGA guy, has even come out himself to condemn and basically say this is a massive mistake on Trump's part. And so what we have is we have this, this sort of thing which maybe Americans haven't experienced, not like really us, where everybody knows what the implications of Epstein is, what crimes were committed, who were involved, and probably why it's been covered up. Whether it be, I mean, it's been covered up because either um, there were Mossad and Israel was involved, or this is how um, possibly a foreign nation is controlling the U.S. government or influencing politicians through not just payments through PAC money, but blackmail. And so you have this really bizarre thing where the masses and even people within the elites know, but whenever confronted publicly, the normal is just to deny it, just say, well, it's not real and it's a crazy conspiracy theory. And we had this with the grooming gangs in this country. With the grooming gangs, even people, I've been doing the sort of like my own research into the grooming gangs as well, and I can look back at videos on even Sky where even they may refer it to BBC when they won't refer it to a grooming gang, they'll just say like a gang of sex offenders, try to kidnap a girl and everything, and they don't talk about the ethnicity, but yeah, it's implied. And what you had was a cover up by the police, by the local political machines on the ground. Now, most of this happened in mill towns in northern England, and in the West Midlands. So this would be the Labour Party for the most part, but into places like Telford in the south, this would have been the Tory Party. So both parties are guilty, but a lot of this happened under Labour, and a lot of the community, the people, um, the Pakistani men who committed this crime, um, were from the same community of those in the local government. And so what you had was this, protection on a local level from within their own community because, and this is where, you know, this is how vanguards work, unfortunately. You know, um, they don't, they don't do the right thing. They look after their own, and um, the fact that to, it was done to the other, I also think, made a difference in that regard. And what you had is for what um decades and decades and decades denying it ever occurs. And I'll just see if I can bring up a clip here to illustrate my point. I might not be able to um bring it up because it depends on my internet is just so crappy at the moment, so it may not be possible. But it's the Denning poll, James Denning poll, when he was, and this is probably about before Brexit, so maybe about 10 years ago now, maybe a bit longer now. I can't bring it up. But where he was in front of this crowd and he talked about, um, I think they're talking about the safety of women and sexual assaults and all that sort of stuff. And he brought it up, and he was booed and shouted down by the handpicked audience that the BBC would select, and those on the panel. And you had your your Indian Pakistani lady who would talk down to him and say that this was an absolute disgusting and racist thing to even suggest, and everything like that. So um, you have to look at the type of people who speak out against this. Now, going back, fast forward and get back to America, look at the backgrounds of the people who are either, I've seen now that to even talk about Epstein and the files is now coded as anti-Semitic. And this is exactly the same ploy and tactic that was used, cry racism, um, or cry bigotry, I should say, to the Pakistani Muslim community when you had the grooming gangs. And so in my mind, there is something to this story, which is probably why there's this great concerted effort. Because what you have seen, I haven't even checked Steve Crowder. I mean, I was just thinking now, Steve Crowder, like what he's been putting out on this. Um, but you have seen the concerted effort by many people on the MAGA right, um, talking head types from Charlie Kirk down to Daily Wire types. Oh, excuse me, and so on, who have and who remain denying the to reinforce the denial of existence of it, that it's anything significant, um, and that it never existed, nothing ever happened, and that to talk about it now is just silly and weird. And Trump has now been the main sort of bulwark on this, and he got ratioed on his Truth Social platform today, um, by, I presume, angry um, followers. I have got a question here from Black Pigeon Pills. Um, what do you reckon will happen to Ghislaine Maxwell? BAP openly says Epstein did nothing wrong. So with Ghislaine Maxwell, she one of the interesting things that could be done on appeal is that she will on appeal, and any lawyer will say the obvious. What what evidence was she charged under, if now, like, the various, like, State Department and the Office of the President is saying, along with the CIA and what have you, that there was nothing there? Because so presumably, by that logic, she is innocent if there is nothing. If they're saying that there is nothing and there was nothing, then what evidence is there? Are they still admitting there was trafficking to the islands and that she engaged in child trafficking? On BAP saying, um, on sorry, Black, I can't read that out, but basically, yeah. Um, BAP openly says Epstein did nothing wrong. Um, I refer to, I mean, look, BAP, yeah. Um, well, you know what it is, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, I've listened to him in the past, and some of it's been interesting, but ultimately he's part of that persuasion, and BAP is making the same sort of statements of sort of cover that countless Labour politicians from those communities made, um, whenever dealing with the press or members of the public or on Question Time that brought up the grooming gangs. They just said, "No, it never happened." And if it did happen, it's their fault because of the way they dressed, or because they have there's poor parenting, or it's a societal problem. And I've heard I remember so many I even remembered likes of Jack Straw, basically said that there is just overbuilding of testosterone in these young men, that they're from societies where they have a high buildup of testosterone. Um, so that, that this is just them people playing Vanguard's protection for their own group. Because look, nobody wants to say, yeah, my entire like community of people that I am uh community of people are basically involved in some pretty heinous crimes, like the worst crimes under the sun. And so it's easy just to lie and deny about it. Um, let's see what Caravigo. Oh, hello there. Before I say, happy Crusade Plague Doctor. Hello there. Um, they entice you with sin and vice. Bap is a perfect example. Yeah, I know I laugh a bit about my sort of love for Caligula and Nero and all these sorts of um figures in history. And of course I did the live reading of 120 Days of Sodom. But one thing that I one thing that I sort of look at in those things is, well, first of all, what with the 120 Days of Sodom, it was my version of a critique of liberalism, like what ultimate freedom and basically the rejection of the transcendent leads to. And that's why I believe the whole book, the premise on that, is basically a degradation of man. In my mind, the book is a total degradation of man. And um, I think, I think whether it be what we all think it is and probably know it is, uh, it actually represents modern, politicians today. But also goes to show, and this is the other sort of big thing, and it's not exactly a revelation, but politicians aren't power brokers. They aren't movers and shakers in power. I mean, it's not. I'm not sort of breaking new ground here by saying this, but at their heart, they actually don't work to achieve anything. Because, I mean, let's be honest. y- Think of the average MP or the average US congressman or senator. The amount of scandals and baggages that um, follow them around. Could you honestly have them? Do you honestly any of you think that they actually run the show? I mean, they'd be open up to blackmail 24/7, and not just from foreign states, but from people within their own constituencies. So it's always good to have the illusion of democracy and then have lackeys in there who, let's be honest, are some of the worst perverted, criminally minded individuals. Um, and yeah, I mean, the fact that you have figures in there who will just oppose, you know, who either run a mockery or oppose. Um, I guess you could say self-restraint. Um, and this is a left and right thing as well. This is a left and right. Um, I don't like the idea of evangelicals believing, well, we're just saved. We are just saved because it by having Jews in Israel or of an Israeli state, that because then that gives them um, full justification for any forms of sin. Um, and it's kind of like the scapegoat stuff. We put all the sin on the goat, trick God, and everything else. I don't believe you can. If you have an all-powerful, all-seeing God, you can't trick him. Anyone who thinks that is literally mentally retarded. I don't I've never understood that. Ataman, the one especially spiteful. I mean, I've never seen more of low T group. Low testosterone group. Yeah, you know, they I've really come to despise many conservative commentators and or be outright skeptical of them because I a few years ago I went to get a few years ago I went to a car dealership and every single one of those salesmen there and sales reps were trying to get me to get a car, purchase a car I didn't want, but a car they wanted me to sell, wanted to sell to me. And they used every persuasion tactic, um, emotional blackmail, and just straight up, I mean, what you, I guess you say gaslighting, um, all forms of like self propaganda, just being bombarded with it. And what they were, and bargaining as well. And all of them had the stereotypical, the suits were a bit big for them. They they looked like goblins. They just had this look about them of shifty tricksters. And so I walked out there because it was giving me like the sort of ick, what the girls say, the ick vibe. It was giving me one of that. It was just like these people are disgusting. And so I I have that's the same sort of feeling I have whenever I see them. That the number one, they're not sincere, and that this is just a. I mean, I don't think even the word grift can sort of present this strongly how I feel. This feels just like an op. It feels like I'm watching an op. Lauren Southern is another. I mean, on moving away from the female one, she is just a walking containment energy sucking out machine. That's not a pun, by the way. Every year she does her damnedest to wreck one group or another. I mean, I mean, and there's been a lot of controversy this week with Raw Ignatius and everything, talking about gatekeeping, how that is like a bad negative trait, what have you. But we really need to. We need to exile these people because you can't have. Maybe they're not such. Maybe they're just damaged individuals. I don't care. They cause more problems. They create division, and also it appears they hand victories to the left, and they're not sincere people. We you have to have sincere people running the show. Confessions of a Justified Sinner. Yeah. um, Seeing Sam Bankman-Fried's girlfriend just confirmed my biases. Yeah. And they're gonna cast her, and there's gonna be like a TV or a film or something, maybe like a Netflix show, and they're gonna cast her and some of the actors that have been called up on. I mean, I'm like, um, it's like that actress from the actress who was in X Files as Scully. What was her name? Gillian Anderson. Um, so she was playing that Emily Matis in that Prince Andrew TV film or what have you. And not being funny, Gillian Anderson, she's even in older age, she's quite fine. Emily Matis though, yeesh, yeesh, I don't see it. I just don't see it, and it's a form of in my mind, that sort of getting someone prettier to play you is like, you know, it's like it's like We Was King sort of thing, like black actors wanting to play white roles. It's just it's bullshit, right? um, Shysters in the name of such types. Yep. I do enjoy using the term shill. Yeah, so do I. And I wish keep on using it. Atman. Rorik Nationalist is going to the Witan this year. Ah. Interesting if right after he upsets everyone there, but he does have a point. Well, the only thing I disagree with Atman is his point, or my interpretation of what his point was. We shouldn't bother organizing. We should let, you know, some West Coast American uh, alt liberal types, alt artsy liberal, and alt monarchists sort of run the thing, and we just be hobbits or something like that. No, I don't agree with that. I and look, this is the hardest thing to sort of maybe get over. People like Royal Nationalists and even Lotus Eaters, and you know maybe even AA to a certain extent. A lot of these big content creators, they rely on um, news and the system to be where it is today. Some, like AA and others, have moved to more sort of niche content things that will, you know, that's separate from politics, that's separate from the news rounds and news stories, the slob, that we call it. But at the end of the day, these content creators on the right rely on the shit society that we live on today. And if the society was to be fixed, if there was a great man or a Cromwellian figure or whatever, a king, monarch, whatever you want to call them, that sweeps in and gets rid of all the shitty aspects of society, repatriations, the whole works, everything that all of us, what everyone wants in chat and people listening back now, they would be out of a job because the things to complain about. I mean, unless they go like 180 and then get nostalgic for like the woke era or something, could happen. But a lot of them will be out, and so you have to ask yourself the question: is if you invite these people in to your movements and stuff, and you're saying, I want to improve, like our local community, and then we can use that method to improve local society, build up a rival network. Well, they may not want it because the financial aspect is that it would not benefit them in the long run. They rely on the chaotic nature of modern Britain. And so that's why I'm not against the gatekeeping, because, you know, you have like the revealed motives of a lot of these people. I mean, I was critical on Splendid Isolation, Iron Duke's channel, of Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, bringing up Tommy Robinson's name to Rupert Lowe. The reason I'm critical of that, and the reason I stand number one is Tommy Robinson isn't a real patriot. He's a patriot for another nation, and him and that other nation use Britain and other European countries as a dumping ground for the chaos that they reap in their own region of the world. Um, and they use the British people to whip up um, lesser forms of accepted bigotry, which isn't, yes, the people that they go after, Islamists and stuff, are a problem, but at the same time, they get them to in the hundreds of thousands to go down to London. Lots of money's donated on things, and very little happens. And also, they have a habit of taking credit for other people's stuff, especially like on the grooming gangs and what have you. Um, Credit me about exposure and everything. Um, does and is sort of moved about a bit, and then he sneaks off in what was it, like a pink taxi or something? Remember that? Or some sort of like in Chinatown. So yeah, I don't. You have those sorts of figures who I don't believe really would welcome any sort of positive change because it would affect them negatively. You know, all the hard work that they put into something would just go. Um, Ghislaine was a super mod on Reddit. Social media is awash with disinformation campaigns, very well funded, organized too. Um, Possible. Um, I mean, remember if they use fake modeling agencies as a cover to get like girls and things, there's probably like a dead Facebook or MySpace or some form of accounts which are dead which sort of date back from that time. And or maybe there's like fake accounts which approached somebody and they weren't successful. You know, they had some parents that cottoned on that something wasn't right, or they felt maybe it's like a scam or something. Who knows? We're not hobbits or elves. We're men. Yeah, and look, none of us are going to. None of us are going to like overthrow the regime. We're all going to become elites and everything. Um, that's that was never on the table. But all I'm saying is we shouldn't be governed by foreign elites because they hate Islamists and hate immigration. That's not a strong enough argument. It has to be, we have to have our own elite. For Britain isn't a real country. Most countries aren't real because we don't have real elites anymore. I'm not against elites. I want British elites who are British through and through and loyal to this country and its people, not this sort of globalist foreign elites who have incredible loyalty to dual national causes. I mentioned on Duke's channel, but it seems the government deliberately seek to incite people to riot. Yeah, yeah, and it looks like that happened today. Black Pigeon Pilled in, or it's ongoing now. I'm in Epping. The government, the police escorted. This was at a demonstration by locals outside the migrant hotel, and the police were escorting very small group of stand up to racism and NGO being busted in from a couple NGOs busted in from London to attend like a counter demo, and they were protected. They looked like they arrived with the police and were protected by the police. So yeah, yeah, they do this. They do this, and we'll see how that tactic will work. Continue. I mean, they have been caught on camera this time. 'Cause it seems quite obvious, but see what see what comes of this. Yeah, that was own goal by Carl. On the other hand, maybe it provided an off-ramp for Lowe without offending the Bobinson crowd. I mean, not being funny, the people on the Bobinson crowd um, will follow anything. I mean, they're kind of like if you were to have like a pyramid of hierarchy of people on the right in Britain, I would say the Bobinson crowd are like below peasant level. They're just sort of like dipshit serfs, like just real proper dipshit serfs. They'll follow anything. Um, as long as it is biscuit tin Nashism and Bashas Islamists, they're all good to go. I wouldn't worry about them. But I understand what you mean, because the question might come up, later on. But as I have said, I don't think uh, Lowe should have anything to do with him or Matt Goodwin or all any of these figures because they are a distracting and subversive force who will cause drama, division, and ultimately break up the group that that's formed. The Afghans getting super injunction to hide it from the public is proof of this. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. It sounds like we are being bit like conspiracy pilled, and everything when we talk about this, but there really isn't, and it's not. it isn't like, negligence, it isn't, and people still say this today, and I just it's ridiculous. It's not negligence, it's not, incompetence, this is just deliberate. This is deliberate. It's deliberate where they put them in the migrant hotels. It's deliberate where the migrant hotels are around the country, you know. To what ends, I can't tell you. It one thing that is still, um, a question mark in my mind, and if ever I had the chance to meet a senior civil servant or people in in that sector who are behind all this, is I would always ask them the question, you are basically creating you know, the system for, demographic collapse in this country, the rival of factions in this country, um, breakdown in sort of law and order on a micro level, and yet you're ramping up global conflict, with Russia and Iran, particularly Iran. How do you square that away? It none of that seems a possible, um, outcome to achieve. That's what I'd like to know. Like, what is the sort of, rationale behind that? I mean, the obvious one is, oh, they hate white people, they hate British people because of their own vanguardist group, personal self-interest to do so. But if there is like, what about the white British people who are doing this? That's what I want to know. Question: if Lowe does a mea culpa, at on his previous support for welcoming Afghans, could he use the current debacle to clear the house in the Tory party, or is it just too far gone as an institution? Um, no, I think that this thing on the Tory party, and they've been doing damage. They've been, first they were being silent, now they're doing damage control today, basically saying that because of super injunction, Braverman and Jenrick and all the other figures couldn't stand up in Parliament and talk about this and condemn this, that they were basically forced at gunpoint. None of that is true. If you actually look into the parliamentary privileges, it overrides super injunctions and every court bit. They can stand up and in Parliament and break a super injunction, um, if it's in the national interest and free from any legal, consequences. And they could have done. They could have done, but they didn't because they were involved with this. Because uh, Generic. This was, if you look back in 2021, Generic and most Tories were welcoming Afghans, into this country. And the funny thing is, they were saying, well, these people were Afghan interpreters. They served with the British Army. They deserve to have our, undying gratitude and respect. And my point on there's always been on this. Well, number one, they joined up with the British Army at a time because it was convenient for them, because they knew that they could probably make a quick buck. Not a single Afghan honestly believed the Taliban would not return. I do not believe that for a second. Most of them knew. Most of them knew. You'd have to be like the average village idiot to believe otherwise. But they took advantage, and and also this is the other thing. They sided with the foreign power. If Britain was invaded, uh, I say if, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's use, I mean, Britain as an example. If, yeah, if Britain invaded, um, if there was a change in Britain, those who worked with foreign powers to, cause harm and everything, they would face some sort of punishment. And um, this is the risk you do when you betray your country. when you're a turncoat. Happened in World War II with in sort of the Allied in the Benelux and places where they had high numbers of recruits into the German forces. Those who collaborated or were seen with Germans and everything, like the women, received punishment, and it happens. It happens with collaborators. But what what is ridiculous is in this relocation, it's not just interpreters. It's people in the Afghan National Army. It's people who were basically corrupt, took bribes from um, Taliban, and as someone as Karavika in the chat just put it, also engaged in Bachabazi, which is basically a local practice, tribal practice of where they engage in child grooming of boys, mainly boys. Um, and this was done um, particularly in the Afghan National Army and Police Force. It is also supposedly been it was referenced in a Vice documentary. A lot of them would also smoke dope. Um, and then, of course, and I remember this, and old people who maybe my age and a bit older will remember this, that daily you would hear on news reports of how an Afghan National Army or Afghan police officer turned their weapons on a British soldier because he was actually a Taliban or affiliated with a tribe with the Taliban or what have you. And these are the people that the Tories signed up to come to UK. Judas betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. The Tories did this for free to the country. Always remember that. That's my motto on this. Judas did it for 30 pieces of silver. The Tories did it for free and continue to do it. It's a rotten institution beyond saving at this point. And quite frankly, even if Rupert Lowe gets, I don't think Rupert Lowe would even want to touch it with a barge pole because the name itself is just tainted. It's beyond exorcism at this point. It can't be exorcised of its wickedness. It's pure evil. It's funny seeing schizophrenic David Amy claiming to be English whilst at the same time doing all he can to advocate for Windrush and generic black diaspora in Britain. Yeah, he's a half-wit and stupid oaf that made it through Harvard somehow. Yeah, Bakshi Bash, we called it. Um, I'm still impressed Pakistan managed to deport more Afghans in a matter of hours than the Conservative promised to in 50 years. Yeah, well, this is the thing. In Afghanistan and Iran, they don't like them. They understand their neighbours. They understand how backward they are, even by their standards. They don't want them. They just don't want them there. Um, and this is the other thing. Since the Victorian age, Britain has had this like theory cell level obsession of accepting refugees from regimes, um, and these refugees have been political activists who've opposed the ruling regimes. And you look about it in the Karl Marx as a classic example. Other Eastern European anarchists, communist Marxists, um, you know, Islamists, anti-Putinists. There are so many that becomes the home of these political activists, um, you know, foreign groups with dual nationality. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder that these people are so successful as well? One thing that, and I think this is just, I never used the term Overton window because there's stuff like this. A couple of weeks ago, it's like, yeah, Restore Britain's come along. We're moving the Overton window, and then suddenly this bombshell hits, and It's like a massive slap back to reality. It's like we've been kicked off our perch, flown back, crashed back to land, and it's like, oh yeah, back to reality. We have no control. Um, the government is just doing this. I mean, today they've lowered the voting age, um, for obvious reasons because in the next what 15 years, 10 years, you're going to have a younger group who are going to be um, a wider range of ethnic foreigners in that group that can vote. Whether they vote Labour though, they could vote for the Jezbollah party or something. So it may backfire on Labour, but you know this is the thing. It opens up the gateway for the next thing that foreigners be able to vote, and dual national, foreigners, immigrants be able to vote, asylum seekers be able to vote in national elections. So you know, there's no winning. That doesn't feel like a win. And one of the problem I have is, like I get Restore wanting to have use the parliamentary system to get debate started in Parliament, but the fact that um, you know left wing groups don't engage in like filling out signatures for debates. They circumnavigate politics to direct to power to get what they want, and it can't just be we sign 100, 100 like. Oh, sorry, my mic just collapsed there. Um, I'll hold it for a minute. It can't just be that we sign for a topic in Parliament, so it can be over 100,000 times for every bit where it may just be discussed. It has to be more than just that. It has to have the ambition to be more than just that, and that the when I said it has to be like the right wing Fabian Society, it really does. It has to go beyond that and not be afraid of circumnavigating like left wing groups do and NGOs do. So yeah, I'm gonna probably wrap it up here now. But yeah, I think going back to the original piece here that I think this could be America's grooming gang style thing where in late and the thing there is this is quite unnecessary. The Republicans have tarred themselves with this mess unnecessarily, in my mind. And I think it'll come out the reason why they did. And maybe the Republican Party will be in a zero seats position. I mean, at this rate, Trump's declared that he doesn't want, you know, what like 93%, 94% of his voter base because if they're interested in the Epstein files. So there you go. What can you do? Anyway, this was always going to be a bit of a short one, so I'll see everyone a bit later and try and fix my mic. It's fallen, gone astray. Um, and I'll see you all next time, whenever that may be. Maybe on this channel or be with, say, Iron Duke or someone like that. Anyway, go well, everyone.